Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for organising this event. Thank you very much, folks, for turning up to hear what we have to say tonight. It's always difficult following great speakers like Baroness Hoey and Jamie, because you don't quite know what they're going to say and therefore what's left on the menu for me to say. But I have a few things to say nevertheless. I want to take you back to 2016 momentarily. It was a binary choice we had that we were asked to determine. Do we want the United Kingdom to leave the European Union? A very simple question, to which actually we gave a resounding response. 17.4 million people, the biggest democratic vote for any single issue in the history of the United Kingdom, was to take back control of the United Kingdom away from the EU. And what does that mean in its simplest form? It means that the territorial borders of the United Kingdom would go round the United Kingdom. It was basic, it was obvious. And the reason I got involved, as much as I love Northern Ireland, and as much as I'm increasingly loving it with the warm welcomes when I come here, the reason I got involved in the fight against the protocol was because I could see that the most fundamental basis, it was defeating the existence of the United Kingdom and the democratic vote that took place in 2016. It struck me immediately that this was not just the price of Brexit, and many of you will be familiar with that expression. Barnier said the price of Brexit would be Northern Ireland, and some people in England said it was a price they were prepared to pay, including Julia Hartley-Brewer, who some of you might know. And you'll wonder why I'm saying it, but perhaps it's self-evident why I've named her. But she said that Northern Ireland was a price worth paying for Brexit. But of course it wasn't, because the minute you concede Northern Ireland, the minute you take the ridiculous technocratic position that our government took to so-called get Brexit done, you actually undermine the whole principle of sovereignty, the principle of taking back control. And what have we therefore seen in the last 6 years since we voted to leave the EU? We've seen complete political and constitutional chaos, because our government didn't understand what it was required to do, and it failed to do it. And it's not just Northern Ireland, therefore, that's being affected. It is the entire United Kingdom. The technocratic, weak-willed, conservative government, it's hard to say those words, the technocratic, weak-willed, conservative government has laid bare not just the border in Northern Ireland, but all our borders. We have no protection on the Eastern Front. The Channel, which has protected the United Kingdom for thousands of years, has now become our Achilles heel. We haven't got the courage to enforce that which we are rightfully entitled to do, people seeking to come into our country illegally. Of course, there's no deportation system that can make up for border control. There's no domestic legislation which can stop people entering your country illegally. There's only one way to do it. We all know how you enforce your borders. It's a physical process. It requires border force to actually do what their name says: use force at the border. You have to have a dedicated force. It's ridiculous that I have to spell this out. You have to have a dedicated force at the border which stops the dinghies and very politely invites them to turn round and go back to France. And if they won't turn round willingly, you make them go back to France. And contrary to the nonsense that Julia Hartley-Brewer was saying on her programme, they will not stab their dinghies. They will go back to France. These are not suicidal people. They're coming to the United Kingdom for a brighter future. But we don't have the courage to do it. You know, the Belgians do it. Are you aware that the Belgians do it? They stop the dinghies off their shores. They use a combination of sensors, barriers, fast boats, drones, and they've stopped them. 92% reduction in dinghies leaving Belgian shores because they've used a physical process. And where has this complete weak approach to border control taken us? It's taken us to having no border on the Eastern Front. It's taken us to having a border down the Irish Sea. No border where there should be one, where the Belfast Agreement recognises the border should be. That's what the Belfast Agreement, folks, was all about. It was about Ireland giving up its constitutional claim to Northern Ireland. We don't have that border. And the whole narrative's been hijacked. They lie to you when they say the Good Friday Agreement, the Belfast Agreement said there should be no hard border. It doesn't say that at all. It makes half a dozen references to the border, and it says there shouldn't be military installations on it. But we've been lied to on that. And so we don't have a western border either. And so we have a farcical situation. And by the way, I'm delighted that it's happened. We have a farcical situation that Westminster passes an Illegal Migration Act, which I don't believe, by the way, would ever control illegal migration, but it passed an act. And that act now can't be enforced in Northern Ireland. If you give up the very fundamental foundations of a country, your borders, you will get farces like this. You will get more farces like this. The biggest farce, actually, that neither Baroness Hoey nor Jamie mentioned, I'm delighted it didn't because I can mention it, is you've got the Republic of Ireland now wanting to enforce the border. I mean, you couldn't make this up. And I'm delighted that they recognise that they should be enforcing the border between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. We should encourage them to enforce that border, because it might just lead us ourselves to enforce our eastern border, reinstitute our western border, and the French looking across the channel might then have the courage to enforce their borders. You know, if you think we've got it bad, they get 180,000 illegal migrants coming into France every single year. And when you give up on your borders, I think I've laboured borders a lot, but when you give up on your borders, you also then couldn't care about legal migration. And let me tell you, the numbers coming across into the United Kingdom legally are unsustainable. We've had 5 million people come to the United Kingdom in the last 5 years. That's 8% of our population has changed in 5 years. More people have come to the United Kingdom in the last 25 years than in all of history before that. It is a rate of change in our culture and our social makeup with which we cannot cope. And we can fix the broken economy the Conservatives have created. We can fix the constitutional issues. You cannot fix the social and cultural fabric once it's gone. And we need to get a grip of our borders instantly to prevent any further damage. We need to have a robust policy on integration. We need to teach English language to all those who enter our country. We need to teach our history proudly to all those who enter our country. No, we're not descended from slave traders. We're descended from extremely capable, good people who actually shut down the slave trade. The Church of England shouldn't be putting £1 billion aside as it is. Justin Welby hasn't got a clue. £1 billion aside for reparations, for damage apparently done to people who died 200 years ago by people who also died 200 years ago. And the church was at the forefront of the abolition of the slave trade. And we fought the slave trade for 70 years on the high sea, at great cost to this country, at great human and financial cost. But no one tells us that. They tell us we're descended from slave traders. We've got to get rid of this nonsense, and people coming to this country have to be taught to be British. And the other thing, the other consequence of not protecting our borders is that in order to make people feel comfortable when they come to the UK, We practice something called diversity, equality and inclusion. How many people here have heard of DEI? It's not diverse, it's not equal, and it's not inclusive. What it tells you is that if you're from an ethnic minority, or a minority religion, or a minority sexual preference, or you don't know what your gender is, you've got a greater claim to jobs and prosperity in this country than what I call the indigenous people. That is what DEI is. And it exists to try and settle the social fabric which multiculturalism is tearing apart. So there are multiple, and I could go on and on, there are multiple impacts coming from not understanding the importance of borders and enforcing them. It is affecting the entire United Kingdom. It is doing it socially, culturally, politically, constitutionally, and also economically. We can't cope with the numbers of people at any level. It has to stop. But I am just moving rapidly on. I've probably spoken far too long, haven't I? Yeah. Moving rapidly on. I used not to want to be involved in politics at all. And I got sucked into the Reform UK party because I felt we needed to make an electoral impact against the Tories. But I was resolute I was not going to get stuck into Northern Irish politics because I wanted to stand shoulder to shoulder with unionists. But then we got the lies which Jamie explained and Baroness Hoey explained, where Geoffrey Donaldson, who stood with us, has suddenly forgotten what it means to be, as far as I'm concerned, and I'm going to speak bluntly and I hope I'm not offending anyone, forgotten what it means to be a unionist. You can't. They get very offended, the DUP get very offended when I say they're no longer a unionist party. But how could they be a unionist party if they support a border in the IOC or believe that that border doesn't exist when it self-evidently does? Anyway, what they've done by lying in that way is suck me also into Northern Irish politics. And I'm delighted that Reform UK has forged an alliance with the most principled politician, not just in Northern Ireland, but in the United Kingdom. And Reform UK is not going to give up this fight. If the DUP think I'm going to slink off back into the undergrowth if they abuse me enough on Twitter or say silly things about me on Talkback, and it was the same interview, I think, wasn't it, Jamie, where he was having a go at me personally and denigrating the good Baroness Hoey. If they think I'm going to slink off, they've got another thing coming. I'm here to stay, and I am going to stand shoulder to shoulder with Jim in every sense possible to make sure that people understand the divisive implications at every single level of the Northern Ireland Protocol, why it must go, and why without it going we cannot have prosperity and a settled United Kingdom. And it may feel like Dunkirk, my God it feels like Dunkirk, but we won the war and we're going to win this one.
Thank you.